This is the HL15 from 45 Drives, and this is a brand new ARM server motherboard. Other people have built traditional old school Intel and AMD servers in this chassis, but I'm going to try to build a more power efficient NAS. The other ARM motherboard I've used is massive and it doesn't fit in this case, so I reached out to ASRock Rack and they have this brand new motherboard. It uses an Ampere CPU that runs on the same kind of Arm64 cores that AWS Graviton uses, and my motherboard shipped with a 32-core Ampere Ultra CPU and a 2U cooler. You can also buy the motherboard bare, but that assumes you already have an Ampere CPU, and those can be hard to find. Now, this motherboard was sent to me, the HL15 was sent to me, and these brand new prototype Noctua coolers were sent to me, so you bet this video is sponsored. But there was no extra cash, and none of these vendors have any say over what I show in this video. But yeah, it's definitely sponsored because these companies put together what I hope will be the most efficient rack mount HL15 NAS. I hope, because nobody's even put these things together before, not even Ampere. I haven't even seen anyone besides Serve the Home test this motherboard or these coolers before. Will everything work together? Good question. Before I start mashing things together though, I'll run through some specs. This ASRock Rack motherboard is called the Ultra D8UD-1L2T, and they're calling it Deep Micro ATX. What does that mean exactly? Well, it's micro ATX, but it's a little deeper than your typical micro ATX motherboard. I hope it'll fit in here. But it has 4 PCI Express by 16 slots, 8 DDR4 RAM slots for 8 independent memory channels, 4 Slim SAS connectors, 2 Oculink connectors, 2 M.2x4 slots, 2 10 gig RJ45 jacks, another 1 gig jack, plus IPMI for remote management. That's a friggin' ton of PCIe in a board this small. And quick note on the slots. The top 2 slots are actually only by 8 if you use the same processor I'm using. They're by 16 with bigger Ampere Ultra Max CPUs and by 8 with smaller Ampere Ultra CPUs. Something to keep in mind. Lucky for me, I only need one of the 2 bottom by 16 slots right now. I'm gonna try using one of my Broadcom HBAs to connect to the 15 drive bays up front. The included CPU is an Ampere Ultra Q32 running 32 cores at 1.7 GHz. This chip has a 65 watt TDP, so it should be pretty easy to cool. And it can run 128 lanes of PCIe Gen 4, meaning you can practically plug anything into this motherboard. It's not the fastest CPU Ampere makes, but I'm hoping it'll be at least more efficient than the 128 core monster CPU I tested last year. I'm going to install 64 gigs of DDR4 ECC RAM with 4 16 gig sticks. I might upgrade later, but right now, since I want to go as efficient as possible, only filling in half the memory channels means the CPU should use a little less power. And I'm going to boot off this Kioxia XG8 NVMe SSD, but I might change that later, we'll see. For storage, I'm going to start with 6 20 terabyte Seagate Exos drives, plus 4 8 terabyte Samsung SSDs, all SATA. All in, that's just over 150 terabytes of raw storage. For power, I'll use the power supply built into the HL15 chassis, and we'll get to that later. Now, a lot of people have talked about the price of this 45 HomeLab HL15 case, and I'm not gonna lie, as far as HomeLab gear goes, it's a premium case with a premium price tag. You can find similar specs on cases that are about half the price. But if you've ever worked with a 45 Drives product, this is basically that. It's rock solid, and this chassis will probably outlive me. Assuming there's still ATX hardware in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you could keep this box going practically forever. So if it's too expensive for you now, wait a few years and hopefully some of these will go up on the used market. Get one then and you'll see what I mean about the quality. But no, I'm not gonna recommend everyone go out and buy one of these. Just like this motherboard, it's not cheap. But it is cheaper. And what I mean is these kind of products are practically enterprise grade, but they're cheaper than what you'd have to pay from an enterprise vendor. That has its own caveats, but this video is not about all that. It's about putting all this together. So let me go off script and get started. So let's get this motherboard out. And in the box, it comes with a few accessories. There's a couple M.2 screws and an I/O shield for the back of this guy. And this is a little different. So this is an adapter to go from the standard 24-pin ATX down to a 4-pin for power and 5 volt, I think. I don't know what all comes off of here. It looks like power and ground and maybe a 5 volt or 12 volt connection. This motherboard is actually a 12 volt motherboard. It just works on 12 volt and it steps down the voltage for its own purposes. It comes with a quick installation guide. So here's that motherboard, and it is beautiful. I love server motherboards. They have so much more goodies All the little things that you don't get on a consumer motherboard, like full by 16 PCI Express slots, 8 channels for memory for faster RAM, dual 10 gig ports, and then another 1 gig port, so you have tons of networking built into the motherboard. You don't even need an expansion card. Has that IPMI through this A-Speed chip. This also has a VGA controller, so you can see there's a VGA port right here. This, with its server heritage, this motherboard doesn't have HDMI, so that's something to think about. I have a VGA monitor, but if you buy this, you might want to have either a VGA monitor or a VGA to HDMI adapter. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fan headers up here. These are 6-pin fan headers, which are a little different, but you can plug in a 4-pin fan to those as well. And then all of the standard pins for front panel and all that. And it looks like I also have this SMB plug is a little bit smashed, so maybe in transit this got squished a little bit. Okay, first things first, I'm going to grab my M.2 drive here, and these slots are both by 4. They're both straight off the CPU. There's no real south bridge in here to speak of because the CPU just has that much PCI Express connectivity. But here's our processor. Let's get a cooler and the RAM. Noctua sent me 2 coolers. I'll get them both out here. These coolers are both prototypes. So this is the, I'll put the model numbers up on the screen if I can get them. These are prototypes, not available for sale quite yet, but they should be at some point, I hope. And if I find any problems with them, I'll let you know and I'll let them know, and they'll fix it. You know, it's Noctua. What are you going to say? It's going to be quiet. It's going to be nice. These are both PWM fans, so they'll spin down. And this guy doesn't come with any thermal paste pre-applied, so we'll have to put some on there. And make sure you take off this cover if you get one of these. Oh, this thing's massive. Wow. This is a big one. So I think this is total overkill for the little Q3217. But if you have the Ampere Ultra Max, then this might be worth it for you. Look at that thing. This guy has plenty of clearance. Looks like the RAM will fit in here and everything nicely. It's a little bit close on this slot here, but I think that should be okay. If I put this one on, the airflow would be going across this way, and that would not quite be ideal because in the system, the air is going to want to come front to back like this. Let's get our RAM in here first. Always check the motherboard manual. So even though these are each individual slots, it does have a preference for you to fill up the first, second, third, fourth channel if you're doing 4 sticks or 6 sticks, but you should always use the same RAM. These are all identical chips. Yeah, so it wants me to fill up the slots closest to the CPU first. And oh my gosh, I'm not wearing an ESD bracelet. It's okay, don't worry. Noctua sent me 10 grams, 2 10-gram containers. I still have like 3 or 4 of these things from old builds. This lasts forever, unless you're rebuilding a server every day or something. So I'm just gonna use the paste they sent me with the cooler, and I'll save these for, I don't know, what do you use this much thermal paste for? Ooh, it's pretty tight down there. Use the arrow on the bottom of the fan, and it's going to come this way, so I want this to be here. And it looks like these are actually hex bits, so hopefully my trusty LTT screwdriver has that. My default bit set on the LTT screwdriver has failed me. It doesn't have the right size here for this. This is, what is it? Well, T15, but this is my Torx driver. It doesn't have the right hex bit for these screws. And to get at these, I'll have to pop this fan off. We'll be back soon, don't worry. I like this design from Noctua. The screws are actually set off so that you can't over-tighten them, basically. I mean, you can always over-tighten something, but you can't really over-tighten these. Once they bottom out, they won't go any further, and you're not going to risk like smashing the CPU. But also the actual hold down on the CPU is what's giving it the pressure. This fan is just to pull heat off. Sometimes with other sockets, you might have a fan and cooler that has to smash down the CPU to get all the pins to contact. It's not how this one is, so it's nice. This, like I said, this is going to be overkill for this particular CPU. It's not going to put out that much heat. But overkill is good. These fans I'm going to plug into, it doesn't look like there's a particular CPU fan header, so I'm just going to plug these into the first two plugs on the motherboard. I think this is ready to start going into the system. Like I said, this thing will be used for converting the ATX 24 pin into this little plug right here, which is 4-pin. It's kind of heavy, and there's nothing in here yet, just the power supply. So let's start by getting the top off of here. Supposedly you can service everything in the rack. I have rack rails, and we'll get it racked up later. But you can do it by, you just unscrew these two screws, this slides back and off, and we're in. Oh, excuse me for a moment. Whew. So inside of here we have the RM750E power supply that comes with this. Comes with this power button that has 4 connections, so I guess light and power on it. That's all bundled up over here, and we have some labeled HD mini SAS connectors for all the drive bays up here. And it has 15 drive bays. These are all toolless. So we'll start building in here. I noticed that these studs are just studs on the base here that are welded in. So hopefully they have standoffs. Here we go. Oh, this is a cable that I bought because I might need it. This is a PCI Express power to CPU power adapter. And look at that. We got our little rack ears. There's a ton of hardware. There's feet. I'm not going to use the feet for now, but I do need these standoffs. This is the moment of truth. We'll see if this actually fits in here. Oh, that's scary. It does fit. That's good. Oh, I love those sounds. And it looks like that's it. Are we good to go now? No, I/O shield. Always forget that. Moment of truth. Did I get all the standoffs correct? Out of the way, out of the way. Yeah. Oh, the ideal motherboard for this case is probably standard ATX. 4, 5, 6, 7, all 7 holes. I'm kind of amazed that that actually was the right positions for all those. And it looks like these fans actually don't plug into the motherboard. They come off of this guy over here, so you don't need to use extra fan connections for that, which is nice. It's kind of weird, but nice. Cable management, yay. There. So now it's time for this guy. It takes 24-pin and adapts it down to this little plug on the motherboard. Oh, well that's not great. I just tried plugging it in and the header just came off of the entire motherboard. Did I mention this is pre-production hardware? Oops. And we have one CPU connection here. PCI Express, SATA. Of course it's the last one, CPU header. I'm gonna grab out my HBA. This is a Broadcom 9405 or something like that. I don't remember. It's a 94 something something. It has 4 mini SAS, HD mini SAS connections for up to 16 drives directly connected through this PCI Express. The cooling might not be perfect for that, but there's enough airflow with this fan. I don't think we're gonna have to worry about this card. Hey. That's thoughtful of them to have a little cutout, although the LTT screwdriver doesn't fit perfectly in there, but it fits. And I think we're ready for storage. I mean, we could boot this up and make sure it actually turns on first. Why don't we do that first? I didn't do the power cable. So we're not going to be able to turn this on until I plug these in. Found a little mapping online, and I will get this plugged in now. Why, after all these years, is there not a standard in the ATX standard for a front panel header connection? I'm going to press the power button and we'll see what happens after I plug it in. It's plugged in, no smoke yet. I'm going to turn on the power supply. Still no smoke, this is good. And there's a light for the BMC. It has some LEDs to give you status of the BMC, of the network connection, of the boot process and all that. I'm going to press the power button, which is lit up right now, and we'll see if this turns on. That did nothing. When you press the power button and it doesn't turn on, what does that mean? I'm going to pause this and we'll come back in a minute. So I'm going to try this again. Nothing. This is the easiest part, just pressing the power button. Well, I wound up taking another power switch that I have and plugged it into the same header, and it works. So something is interesting about their power switch. I'm going to have to look that up. I mean, it's got the same connections. You have power LED and power switch. And plugging in power switch doesn't work. So, I mean, I could just have a bad power button. So on the 45 Home Lab forum, some other people had the same issue, and it looks like I don't know if this was done on the factory floor, or this is how this particular switch comes, but these pins, I'm going to take one off, and I'm going to switch this to closed. Well, nope. I'm guessing / hoping that this was just a, this is an earlier model of this, and on the assembly line they were putting these in and somebody probably popped one out and then they put it in the wrong place. But this should be connected to, let's see, NO, normally open, and C, closed, I guess. That way, when you press the button, it closes the connection and tells the thing to boot up. This should work now. Should. Fingers crossed. Okay, it's lit up. Let's press the power button. There we go. Now we're good. Yeah, it's definitely not silent. It's not loud like an enterprise piece of gear, but it's not silent. Let's put the cover on. That's one complaint some people had. It's like, oh, it's for home lab, so it must be quiet. Yeah, it's still kind of loud. It's loud enough you would not want this at your desk unless you're used to things that are 40 decibels. I mean, there are UPSs that are this loud too, so I'm not going to ding it too badly, but if you're going to run this in a place like this, my studio, I would probably swap it for some Noctua fans or find a way to get all these fans PWM controlled so they can spin down if they don't need to be going full blast. But it is good. Like, I feel airflow back here. I don't know if you can see it on my shirt that much, but there is a good amount of airflow, which is good for all the gear that you might put in one of these boxes. Like that HBA can get pretty hot. So, again, not going to ding it too bad on that, but it is not, I wouldn't call it quiet. Let's get some drives loaded up in here and then let's start installing a system on it. The cool thing about 45 drive setup that I love is you literally take a hard drive, and as long as you line it up correctly, which is this way, you should just be able to push it down and pop. That's it. That's how you install a hard drive. There's no trays, there's no screws. I do love this design. My plan is to have 6 hard drives right now that'll be in one VDEV in ZFS that'll have 2 redundant drives for parity. So it'll be 80 terabytes of storage space with 2 extra drives for parity. That's shared amongst all the drives. But that way I can have up to 2 of these hard drives fail and none of my data will have any problems whatsoever. This is not my only copy of the data too. I'm going to have this copy and a full backup on-site and a full backup off-site. That's called 3-2-1 backups. Highly recommended because there's no such thing as RAID backups. RAID is not a backup. RAID is helpful for keeping your data online, but it is not helpful for backing up your data. Anyway, I'm going to also put these 2.5-inch drives in these little 2.5 to 3.5-inch adapters, which will let me just slap them in just like a hard drive. These I actually 3D printed, and if you want to see more on 3D printing, I don't know, tell me in the comments. I'll put links to the 3D file for this in the description, and also the screws that you need to buy for it, because you need a certain depth, and I think these are like M3 screws. These should now just go in, and I'm going to go ahead and start from this side on the flash, so that way I can expand my hard drives that way. I got Rocky Linux on a USB flash drive. When you download, you have to make sure you download the Arm64 version, or the ARch64, whether you're going to do Ubuntu or Rocky or whatever OS you're gonna install in here. So let me grab that, and I'll grab the cover, and we'll get this thing put together and boot it up the first time. And people always ask me, what is this keyboard that I'm using? It's a nice keyboard for debugging purposes because it has the trackpad built in. It's a nice keyboard. It's the Logitech G400 or something? K400, that's what it is. And this is actually one of the USB flash drives from when I put 3 of these on a Pigeon and raced it against the internet. So I'll put the video up here or down there or somewhere. And we need a monitor. Technically we don't need a monitor, but it's easier that way than trying to do IPMI the first time. And this monitor, of course, has VGA. If you don't have VGA, you'll need an adapter for it. I have my kilowatt here, and I'm gonna see how much power this server takes when it boots up and when it's idle. So first I'm gonna plug it in, switch on the power supply, and I'll check, since this has a BMC built in, the BMC is gonna use a little wattage even when this thing's shut down completely. So yeah, it looks like it's settled in around 3.8 watts. So let's boot this up and see what happens. There we go. And you can probably hear it, but let's see if the monitor comes on and gives me anything.
A few moments later.
Entering setup. So that took quite a while. Yeah, that was about 4 minutes before the monitor picked up. Motherboard information. Okay, so the motherboard seems to be good there. And processor, Ampere Ultra 1.7 gigahertz. Memory information, 16 gigabytes. Installed and failed. Okay, so this might be our problem. That might be why it took so long. You got installed and failed, installed and non-operational. There's the one that it's using, and then installed and non-operational. So, but always a good idea if the first time you put together a computer to go in here and check that out, because 99% of the time that's not an issue, but apparently this time it is. And it does see the Kioxia drive and the external USB drive, so that's good. And we'll shut this down and try again. A1 was the one that failed. So we can see on the motherboard. Take this sticker RAM out, and I have 2 spares, so I'm going to take this one and we can test that later. Okay, and plug power back in on the motherboard. Let's get the cover back on. You can see me in the reflection. Hello. Hello there.
Hello there.
There we go. Let's see how long it takes this time, and hopefully it finds all that RAM this time. We'll see. Okay, entering setup. Seems like that might have been a little faster this time. It was about 2 minutes total. Okay, now we have 64 gigs, DDR4 3200, 4 of those 16 gigs. So I don't know, maybe this RAM stick is bad. I'll have to test it out again. I mean, I bought all these used because I'm not made of money, but I mean, the contacts are a little worn, but I don't know. And I'll boot off the flash drive so we can install Linux. Hey, look at that. It doesn't have enough space. 32 cores is going to be out here somewhere. I hear hard drive spinning up, so that's a good sign. Can you hear that up here? So it's probably initializing the HBA right now, which is telling the HBA to spin up all the hard drives so that Rocky can see all the hard drives in its configuration. I actually have never done a complete bare bones installation of Rocky Linux. I always use containers or I use cloud instances. So this will be something new for me. I've done Debian, Ubuntu, Fedora, a lot of the other distros, but never Rocky. Here we go. And we have a mouse. And it works. We already have a few things that are working on the system. Okay, English. We want to install to that drive. It's 2 terabytes. And let's just quickly check. It sees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There should be, oh, these are the 4 SSDs, Samsung. And then we should see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hard drives. All right, it sees everything. I think we're good. Let's click begin installation. And here it goes.
One eternity later.
All right, Rocky Linux is installed, and there's a button for reboot system. And I'm not going to do most of the setup here because A, it's not an optimal situation for me to be looking like this and you to be seeing my screen like that, and B, A server like this is meant to be set up after you rack it up and you just jack into it and use SSH and tools like Ansible. So I'm gonna do that, and let's get this racked up. First we'll reboot it though and make sure it actually boots up into Rocky Linux. And before somebody tells me in the comments that I need to try Ventoy, this is an Arm64 board and support for that is very experimental. I'm not gonna try Ventoy on here. I don't want to spend a whole video just trying to get my USB drive to have an ISO burned to it that actually boots this thing. So you don't need to comment about Ventoy. Yes, I've heard of it, and yeah. You know what? I completely forgot to get the kilowatt rating for idle power, so I'm gonna boot this back up and we'll let it run for a couple minutes and we'll check the kilowatt power while it's idling. Okay, we are idle now and we're at the login screen. I haven't done anything on here. It's been running for about 10 minutes now. And if I come down here and take a look at Mr. Kilowatt, we are at 158 watts. Woo! Now that is with all the hard drives running. There's 6 hard drives and 4 SSDs. So keep that in mind, but yeah. Let's get you packaged up and ready to rack. These are the rails, rack rails. Usually when you buy a server, the rails come separate. And yes, I'm using a screwdriver as a knife. Packaging, packaging. These are not packaging. Don't know what those are for. Screws. Oh, they're heavy though. Oh, we have instructions. Instructions. How kind of them. Pull them out, press down on the locking tab, the rail releases. Then there should be a tab. Here's the tab. Now you pull that down and then this rail comes all the way out. Yeah. Well, it's supposed to come all the way out. It's like a puzzle. Then we pull this down, it comes out, but it's not coming out. I promise I've done this before. Grr, it doesn't come out though. Oh, sometimes that happens. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the key is just whoosh, send it. These rails are pretty long though. They stick out the back another, I don't know, 8 inches or so. Oh, it's getting heavier now. Good thing I don't have 60 hard drives in this one. Now let's get this back in the rack room. Let's see how heavy this is really quick. Oh goodness, okay. It's just awkward, especially once you get these things in the back that'll poke you if you do anything wrong. Okay. You know what? I finally found a good use for this stubby screwdriver here. I don't have much clearance, so Mr. Stubby can get these screws in. Thank Mr. Linus. And you might be wondering, why am I not pushing the XL60 all the way back? That's because when I do, it sticks out too far in the back and these doors don't close. I mean, they can close, but then you're smashing power cables and smashing networking. The XL60, for a point of comparison, is just monstrous. I realized I only have short patch cables, so I used up the one remaining long Cat5e cable I had for IPMI in the rack. Then I stretched this poor Cat6 patch cable all the way for 10 gig. Anyway, I got connected to IPMI, and this board is running OpenBMC. I set a secure password, got into KVM, and used that to activate one of the X550 10 gig NICs. Rocky Linux, since it's built more for servers, doesn't automatically enable all network interfaces unless you tell it to. So once that was done, I SSH'd in, and look at that, all the hard drives are there. Apparently I've used some of these before, so we'll have to format those. But no matter, I'm gonna follow up this video with a part 2 where I'll set up some network storage, test the performance, and give my final verdict on this machine. Make sure you're subscribed, and until next time, I'm Jeff Geerling.